Alright, so last time we began talking about entity choice selection and what the different choices are. This time we're going to go into what you look at when you're making one of those choices. And the same warning that we gave last time applies this time. That is, when you're setting up an entity, the attributes of that entity are going to vary state by state. A corporation in California is going to have different rules and regulations and consequences than a corporation in Delaware, which is going to have a different one than a corporation in Pennsylvania, etc., etc. So with that in mind, there are really kind of 5 items that I take a look at and that we drill down on when we're choosing between different entities. One is taking a look and analyzing your liability, or potential liability. Another, the tax consequences of that particular entity choice. Another, management. The fourth, funding. How are you going to get money into your company to have that company grow? And then fifth and finally is your exit. How are you going to continue to run your business or potentially sell this business to somebody else? Let's take a look at the first one. Liability. Generally, when business owners are interested in establishing an entity, they're interested in protecting themselves personally. That is, making sure that should something happen with the business, their own personal assets are not at stake. For example, their home, their cars, their personal bank accounts. Each of the different entities has slightly different consequences on the liability. For example, sole proprietorships, there is no limited liability protection, nor are there for general partnerships. So aside from liability, taxes are another issue that you need to think about. Now, obviously, tax law and taxes are an enormous area. There are professions devoted to it, both CPAs and tax attorneys. And so depending upon your situation, it's going to make sense to utilize the services of those professionals in conjunction with establishing the correct entity. But some of the things that you're going to want to look at is, what are the tax implications? If you set up a C Corp, which is your traditional corporation, you're going to have potentially that second layer of taxation. That is, the corporation is an entity unto itself, and then when it pays out dividends to its owner, the owner is also going to be taxed. That's different than a sole proprietorship where there is no separate entity. The owner is taxed and the business is taxed as one and the same. Additionally, depending upon which state you're in, there are going to be implications for the taxes. For example, here in California, LLCs are taxed at a different rate than corporations. Depending upon what your business is, what the margins are on your business, it's going to help determine whether or not it makes sense to go with an LLC or a corporation or something else. In addition to taxes, it's important to take a look at the management structure. How is it that business is going to be run? Who's going to be making the major decisions, both in the short term, and then also setting those longer term goals? Does it make sense to have a more formal structure, like a corporate board? Or are there only a few people who will be managing the business, and you want to have it done by agreement either in a partnership or a limited liability company? Let's move on to funding. How are you going to get that money into your business to help it grow? It's going to make a difference if you're going to be seeking outside investors, or if you're just going to be trying to obtain funding from a bank. Additionally, it's going to be important, and I kind of throw this into the funding area sometimes, who else are you going to be giving pieces of your company to, if anyone? Are you going to want to reward your employees with some equity, whether it's stock option or restricted stock? It's important to keep those things in mind when you're choosing the correct entity for you, because otherwise you're not going to be able to accomplish the things that you actually want to accomplish. And then the same thing in terms of an exit. Are you looking to sell your business to another company, maybe a corporation? Are you looking to stay into it for the long term, potentially passing it on to your family? There are many different consequences in that area that you need to be focused on now when you're setting up, so that the transactions costs of trying to fix those mistakes early on do not have to be incurred. So that concludes entity choice selection. Next up, we're going to talk about some of the things that you should keep in mind when you're thinking about the right attorney for you. And in the meantime, follow my blog, follow my videos, and thanks for watching.